subcontinent is a southeastern vast ancient country with a history as old as history itself, with diligent, patient people. The country underwent great changes since the arrival of the British colonialism in the country in the 17th century. The British Navy, under the cover of the East Indian Company, entered Indian ports to colonialize Indian lands through a series of bloody wars and struggles that lasted about 100 years. The British knew that to colonialize a land was not just to occupy that land. Colonialization is completed only when the people's culture and beliefs are fully under the conquering power's influence. Therefore, colonialists try to replace indigenous culture with that of their own. Thus, not only did they bound the conquered people economically, but also they changed the indigenous people's history and belief system.
Ancient geographers say the door to the Sand River and to India. When the Arabs conquered Iran through Sistan, Kerman, and Mokran, they called the place Islam's door. Mokran is presently in Pakistan. Islam's door was in India for centuries. The place is known now as Pakistan. Centuries later, they passed through Jamna, and this way was Islam disseminated.
The Aryans' arrival in India played a big role in the land's social system, culture, religion, and literature. As examples, we may cite early Sanskrit formation, Indian holy text compilation, and Indian society class system. Iran-India's blossoming era comes when Islam enters Iran, when due to trips made by Iranian Muslims, Gnostics, and merchants, Islamic culture is disseminated throughout the subcontinent. Muslims then scattered here and there, choosing their landing place as their home under their religious beliefs.
Centuries earlier, too, Iran and India were neighbors. Their common border, centuries earlier, was the Sand River. The sand area at that time was called Punjab or Lahore. For centuries, this area was called Lahore Province or Lahore Region. For a while, it was called Punjab. Punjab means 5 waters, because 5 rivers were flowing. It is a place where the 5 rivers join to flow into the Mehran River.
The demographics of the Indian subcontinent tells us that people living here have always been of various religious groups, such as Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Sikh, and tens of other religious groups. Those people have always been living in peace and comfort. Despite various racial and religious groups, the people here have always been using Persian language as their language of unity. When the British colonialists entered the land to gain a foothold, they changed people's language.
Farsi was prevalent here because Farsi was our ancestors' language, therefore it was the language Iqbal chose. Right now, you find here Shirazis, Kermanis, Termazis, and Isfahanis. Their families and children are here. They came here when Genghis in the 7th century conquered Kharazm and then Iran, Turkmenia and Afghanistan. They emigrated from various regions into Pakistan. The Allama dynasty was ruling over here. They had established a foothold here in the 7th century. Their symbol is Qutb Minar.
I did very well know how Islamic ties had united various tribes here. Symbols of the tie between people could be seen everywhere. In any bowl, Chinese and India, alike the sherd that constitutes our jar, Turkish and Syrian alike the clay, forming our body, neither is our heart of India or Syria or Rum, nor any fatherland do we profess except Islam. The Muslim true is not contained in any land or earth. Syria and Rum are lost within his heart. Grasp thou the heart, and in its vast expanse lose this mirage of water and clay.
During Iqbal's life, the British ruled here. People did not speak Farsi, but people's common language was Urdu. The educated and the elite spoke in English. By 1857, English language was prevalent in all Delhi. Then the whole Pakistan used English as their native tongue.
Iqbal was born during the colonialism era. The British and European colonialism were enjoying their peak of power. The whole world was ruled over by one single monarchy. Muslim countries everywhere in Asia, Africa, or South America were entirely crushed. So surprising.
During my study in Europe, I got familiar with European way of life. I could see in person how the products of the colonialized people reached Europe to secure a comfortable life for the Europeans. I was not unaware, of course, of the ignorance of my motherland. My mind, therefore, was always searching for a remedy. For all its repertory of varied charms, I will take nothing from Europe except a warning. You, enchanted to the imitation of Europe, be free. Clutch the skirt of the Quran and be free.
One of Allama Iqbal's wishes was being free from the British employment. He felt belonging to a nation closely dominated by the British. Then he said, the least thing to do is to avoid being employed by them. For that very reason, he got a traineeship license. Before that time, he would teach here, that is, in the state-owned faculty. He was a government employee. He resigned to practice a traineeship, which was considered a private independent job. Meanwhile, he would deeply think of Muslims, particularly Indian Muslims. As a side activity, he composed poems.
All my life has been coincident with the Indian subcontinent's darkest days. British colonialism and now World War I. India was dominated by colonialism since the 18th century. But as World War I began in August 1914, a new form of cruelty began to cover my land. Indians went to fight a war wherein they had played no role. They were killed and killed for people who themselves were the main factor in bringing ruin and destruction to the whole world. Description of troubles brought about by those calamities is actually impossible.
In 1910 and 1911, and after World War I, we see a number of liberation movements. Muslims rose against British and European colonizers. So Iqbal found himself on a well-defined route. He started composing revolutionary poems.
After World War I in 1918 and the fall of the Ottoman Empire, something had to be done quickly to save people of the tyranny imposed on them. I knew that a worldwide caliphate was no longer practicable. There was no agreement between Islamic unity and blind religious prejudice or extreme nationalistic ideas as promulgated by colonial powers. Unwillingly, I engaged in political activities. I tried to raise public awareness to bring about self-reliance.
Allama ran for Punjab Parliament election. As he said, he hated political activities and Muslims' needs forced him to enter the political arena. Consequently, he joined the Muslim League Party. He succeeded to become an MP for Punjab province for 3 years. During that time, he tried to solve Muslims' problems. Iqbal used to talk on such problems.
The great leader appointed him as the head of those provinces. Iqbal accepted the position, though he was sick. Sir Iskandar Hayati was the ruler of Punjab province. All political parties supported Britain. The only opposing power was the Muslim League Party. At that time, the party was the center of political attention. Various people would at that time come to our house. All politicians of the time, at least all rulers, used to come to our house.
Allama Iqbal nurtured the wish for an independent Pakistan. He would say a new country, an Islamic country, would come into existence on the world map. The country's name, he would say, will be Pakistan. Iqbal did not give this name to a new country, but surely he had it as a Muslim country in mind.
On what basis Pakistan as a would-be country was formed? Why such a country was necessary to exist? Why should we divide the subcontinent into 2 or 3 parts? But the proposal met agreement both by the British and by the Indians. Why? Right now they are fighting against each other. They are 2 different countries which are called by Pakistani people as Nazaria.
Up to the very end of my father's life, our house was exactly the center of the Muslim League Party. At that time, people thought of a separate country everywhere in India. The country is located in the northwest, including 4 provinces: Punjab, Sindh, Baluchistan, and Northwest Frontier Province. In all those provinces, there were movements. Bangladesh or Bengal was farther from here. The attention of the Muslim League was focused on Pakistan.
O thou that art as the soul in the body of the universe, thou art our soul, and thou art ever free from us. Thou breathest music into life's lute. Life envies death when death is for thy sake. Once more bring comfort to our sad hearts. Once more dwell in our breasts. Once more demand from us the sacrifice of name and fame. Strengthen our weak love. Hide not thy fair face from the empty-handed. Sell cheap the love of Salman and Bilal. Make this chaff a mountain rested with fire. burn with our fire. Oh, that is not God. When the people of Islam let the thread of unity go from their hands, they fell into 100 mazes. We are dispersed like stars in the world. Though of the same family, we are strange to one another. Bind again these scattered leaves. Revive the law of love. Take us back to serve thee as of old. Commit thy cause to them that love thee.
As Pakistan was forming, the founders considered everything for it. War of civilization then started in the West. It was during the last decade of the 20th century when the discussion started. Pakistan was formed in 1947. 8 to 9 years before that, a council was formed by Muhammad Ali Jinnah to manage the newly formed Pakistan. Jinnah introduced the manifest. There is a section in the manifest titled The Fall of Civilizations, not the War of Civilizations. The Fall of Civilizations and Pakistan's role.
In 1930, in a quick look at history, Iqbal said, "Now it is necessary for Muslims to establish a separate government in the northwest part of India. We will consider the probable consequences in the future repeatedly." He explained this idea.
How did Iqbal analyze the problem? He would say the world is struggling for materialistic things. When this lifestyle continues, all civilizations will fall down and will be ruined. Pakistan will be a country based on Islamic rules. We wanted to be an impartial, moderate society. Our duty is to save world civilizations and to show them the way to survive. How was, you may ask, the people's perspective at that time? At that time, the Western world was thinking of a war.
Iqbal argued that a nation shall not base its activities on having a home. What will be the basis? In answer, Iqbal argued the religion of Islam. There is no God but Allah. Mother home is, Iqbal would argue, but a living place.
Iqbal gave a lecture in 1932. Within the lecture, he explicitly expressed his willingness to have an independent country, to maintain our identity. Living among Hindus does not leave us an identity.
Extremist activities against Muslims backed by Britain finally resulted in the independence of Pakistan on August 14, 1947. The formation of Pakistan in turn results in the immigration of more than 8 million people from throughout India into the new country. Though ethnic and religious segregation has been done between Hindus and Muslims, even today we see deadly conflict between them.
Iqbal says the Muslim world is suffering from such harsh conditions. It regularly asks the West for food, financial assistance, and all other sorts of needs.
When Iqbal tells us that since we are Muslims, we must bow only before God and no one else, he teaches us not to surrender ourselves to the British. This way, we shall enjoy powerful economy. Iqbal advises us against getting a loan from foreigners if we are going not to bow to them.
As Iqbal holds, this is the conditions imposed upon us since some 500 years ago, and that the root cause of all problems is one thing: The Muslim world suffers from lack of creativity.
During the time Allama was in Europe, several young people living there came to see him. They asked Iqbal to write down a poem for them as a memento. So did Allama. The poem is included in the book of Iranian Psalms, which reads, "Live in a style which makes even God more shamefaced. If our death should be eternal, we should follow this way. We should reach a position which makes us pleasant. In fact, we have lost God, though He is searching for us here and there." As Iqbal says, though we have lost God, He is always searching for us. We should be, as Iqbal tells, a sort of man whom God is searching for.